Good morning, everybody. Welcome to FSU Coach Live. My name's Tim Backhurst, and this morning I'm joined with a special guest, Christine Bolger. She is part of the coaching education programming for the USOPC. Christine, I'm going to let you start and explain a little bit about who you are and how you got to where you are today, and then we'll go into a little more specifics about what you actually do.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me here, Tim. This is a great opportunity to reach out and learn a little bit more about FSU and share a little bit about what we do. My journey probably started as a kid. I had really athletic parents who wanted to push me into swimming. My dad was a swim coach, and I refused to swim for him when he was a coach. And as soon as we moved to Virginia, all the kids that I was playing with in the pool ran off to practice. I was like, oh, wait, I got to swim. So that was kind of my entry into my learning of sports, my love of sports. And I was a 4-sport athlete through high school and college. And funny story, 8th grade, eons ago, you get the yearbook. What are you going to be when you grow up? And mine was a professional swimmer. And back then there was no such thing. You didn't get paid to swim professionally. So maybe I was before my time. But never the caliber of athlete that we work with now, but I enjoyed sport very much. I went to West Virginia University and found my way through a BS in sport management. Coaching ed wasn't really even an opportunity at that point. Like, I had been coaching youth sport and soccer and swimming at that point, but that was based on practical knowledge, what I learned being coached as an athlete. And I had some pretty good people who direct me through some of the educational aspects of it, but went through sport management, kind of dabbled in a couple of things that weren't sport management related after I graduated from college. Was in radio consultancy and stayed connected to sport through play and coaching. And then I had an opportunity to work for the National Association for Sport and Physical Education, NASP, which was part of AFERD, which is now Shape America, which is the advocacy organization for physical educators and sport and health educators. So I did some program management of all the sports side of things with NASP, and that was about almost an 11-year tenure. Met some great people where I met you. All of the university college folks, we covered different aspects of sports. So we had athletic administration, athletic training, sport management, youth sport, coaching. And the circles that I ran in included some of the Olympic and Paralympic staff. We tried to get the buy-in for the national standards for sport coaches, which folks may be familiar with. It tells coaches what they should know and be able to do in order to be a quality coach. So was working on that for a number of years, overlapped with a couple different people, and eventually one of the coach department people at USOPC said, hey, you should think about coming out and joining us. And I just laughed. I was like, oh yeah, that's never going to happen. That's just kind of somebody being kind. Stayed with NASP another couple of years, and another opportunity came about, and I was encouraged to apply again. So I did. Went through the interview process and was hired as an assistant manager in the coaching department with the U.S. Olympic Committee. Shock of all shocks. It was probably the coolest moment of my life because I didn't officially make it as an Olympic or professional swimmer, but I was where they were training. And I remember getting my first tour of the training center as an employee, and it's just like you walk into a kid in a candy shop, like, oh my gosh, you're like here. And the guy was like, yeah, that's the way we feel every day. And I feel pretty fortunate to feel that same way every time I walk into the office.
Yeah, I've been there as well, and I remember going in, just, is this real? I mean,
yeah.
These are real athletes kind of attitude. It's an amazing place in Colorado Springs. Yeah. If you wouldn't mind, then here's where you are. What do you actually do? We talk about coaching education and there's all these different organizations, and you've mentioned some of them already. What does USOPC do? And then what do you do under that umbrella?
Sure. So our department is currently 4 people and a contractor. So we're a pretty small but nimble group. What our primary role is to help coaches develop, and we focus on the high end of the high performance pipeline. So we work with our national team coaches and trying to get the pipeline to grow. So we need to find coaches coming in for new quads and things like that. So we offer some different programming. What we've also done is we try to connect pretty well with the coach developers from the different national governing bodies and the high performance management organizations, which is the Paralympic side. to find out what they need, like
Okay.
the non-sport specific information, where we could plug some holes with some of the programming that we do. And what we found is that they need that. They need some different information because they're the sport experts, so they know how to teach the tennis, the soccers, the swimmings, the wheelchair basketball stuff. They're the experts in those sports. We don't claim or want to be that because they do it very well. So we're trying to find some information that we can push out to them that doesn't need to directly tie into any one sport. But we talk about the leadership, the communications, self-reflection and things that people, I've referred to them as soft skills, but they're really not soft skills, they're people skills. And since coaching is a people industry, we need to be really good at interacting with people. So those are the gaps that we try to fill for the national governing bodies. We do some coach recognition because we want to make sure that we're showing people what good coaching looks like and recognizing the people that are doing that. And that includes it expands the pipeline of coaches from the volunteer youth coaches all the way up through the Olympic and Paralympic national team coaches. So that's a little bit of what we do.
So from your perspective, you're more of a facilitator of getting in people to talk about specific topics to groups of coaches who are either coaching already at the national level or want to coach at that national level. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so we tap, or personally, I tap in a lot to our sport performance division, which includes a number of the sport service providers in the sciences, the kinesiologies, the psychologies, the dietitians, our high performance directors, which have a wealth of knowledge. So we try to get them to help us provide programming. We also outsource to the leaders in the industries. A number of them come in and provide seminars to us. So I do source information. We try to get the best information in front of the coaches and then help them understand how what we're putting in front of them can be applied in their own settings.
From that perspective, you're looking at the national level. How then do you provide that education to everybody? Because if you just base it at Colorado Springs, you're really limiting who can travel there and how you can get there. So is this a blend of in-person, online, or is it online only? What have you found is the most effective way to get education out to coaches?
Yeah, so it definitely depends on the coaches we're trying to reach, because we do offer in-person, the National Team Coach Leadership Education Program, and we're horrible at naming things, by the way, but that's the primary program that I work with, our elite level coaches for Olympic and Paralympic. We find that bringing them face-to-face, while it takes more time away from them professionally and personally, it's more effective in terms of delivering information, having them connect on the ground, getting to know them a little bit better. So in that respect, we try to get them face to face. There's another program, our Coach Accelerator program, which is kind of the step not below, but the one that you need in order to get into the National Team Coach program, are the emerging elite coaches. That's another face to face program. And obviously with COVID, we've been challenged to find different ways to reach the coaches. And so what we found since March, the coaches obviously, like a lot of us, have some additional time, so we've been able to do some virtual delivery of information. Not everything, it's not perfect. We're still trying to walk our way or find our way through that, the best information to deliver virtually, and hopefully we'll be able to return to face-to-face seminars soon and then dive more deeply into some of these topics. But we also offer some online courses that are available to everybody, and that we're trying to build a pool of, everything that we work with in terms of the sciences. So we've got a mental skills online course, we've got a foundations of coaching, we've got a communications course, and we try to leverage that information, show it to the coaches at most of our trainings ahead of them coming face to face at these meetings, so that then we can talk more about that. If they're concepts that they're unfamiliar with, when they hear it on the online course, then we can dive more deeply into that when we have them in the classroom.
So you have a variety of different programs. Is there any simple way to explain what programs you have and how they're different, how they specialize in different areas?
Yeah, we try to work together as a team to deliver the soft skills and try to build from one program to another. Like I said, the online courses can be kind of basic, but it gives us a chance to discuss something. It's a piece of knowledge that we can then build on. In terms of the specific topics, they're, like I said, they're leadership, communication, things that are not sports specific, interacting, how to have the tough conversations. So it is evolving. Our program isn't static. It is definitely evolving, because what we do is we ask the coaches, for feedback. These national team coaches are pretty honest with us and saying, hey, either that was stuff I never knew, or it's stuff that I've used, I didn't know the science behind it, or yeah, that didn't work with us, that didn't stick. So we can take their feedback and try to improve on every seminar we offer.
Now, a lot of these sports also have national organizations, or sometimes even professional organizations. And those national organizations or professional organizations sometimes have their own coaching education programs. How do you navigate what you offer compared to what they're doing over here, and make sure that they're not getting that kind of crossover? This is all the same, I've already done this before.
Yeah, we totally respect like I said before, we totally respect the national governing bodies and the HPMOs that have their own coach development system. And, we had hoped with most of the coaches that we work with will have already gone through at least, if not the highest level certification or licensure that they offer, then pretty close to the highest level. Okay. And then what we do is we try to complement with our programming. We don't try to reteach the different sports, the water polos and things. That's not our expertise. We try to complement the programming that they already offer.
Looking now at the future of coaching education, we've seen, I know I have, being in the US for the last 10, 12 years, a lot of change in coaching education and development. It's really grown a lot. And a lot of this has to do with it starting at the top with an organization like USOPC. Looking to the future, where do you think coaching education development needs to further grow, and what kind of areas are we weak on in the US?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, my opinion, in terms of being weak in the US, I think that we're behind a lot of other countries in terms of the systematic approach to training coaches. I always use the example when we were researching what other countries do at the elite level to train their coaches. You could go to, forget the Eastern European nation, but you could go and get a PhD in coaching ice hockey. That's pretty specific, and that's pretty in-depth and detailed in terms of the amount of time and resources you put into something like that. So we learn from what the other countries are doing, and we sort of take it and Americanize it, if that's the way you want to look at it, because it's not realistic really for a national team coach who's already successful to go in and get a master's or PhD specifically in coaching. Because they kind of got that through their experiences. So what we wanted to do is develop something that's kind of a hybrid of what traditional education looks like. I think in terms of, where should we focus? Like I said earlier, it's on the people, because sometimes we forget as coaches that we're working with people. That people have different likes, different styles, different behavior patterns, different ways they prefer to communicate. So it's creating a self-awareness that may or may not already be there, and learning a little bit more about people who could be different from yourself, and how to reach them, and not just how to reach them, but how to motivate them, learn what motivates them. So I think that those are some pretty key pieces to the stuff that we're doing with coach development. And coach development is even a new term. Like I said, when I was in school, there wasn't a coaching major minor that I found. So then it was coaching education, and now it's development. So we want those experiential learnings, not just traditional classroom lectures and things like that. You want to take them into the field. You want to observe them as a coach. Hey, why did you do that? Or why did you set up your training session in this particular way? Did you ever think of? So it's just kind of finding a way to help coach the coach when they're in their own environment, I think is pretty impactful.
One of the challenges that I've seen in providing coach education development to coaches sometimes is their maybe apathy about wanting to learn and be motivated to get better, because don't you know who I am? I've been doing this for many years. I don't need to know anything more than I know right now. Do you have that struggle as well at the Olympic level when we're talking about the elite of the elite when it comes to coaching, or is this this is Tim's group who may be a high school coach or someone like that, and this is the attitude that some of them portray?
Yeah, so when I was in my previous position trying to sell the standards of what coaches should know and be able to do, the argument was always like, well, I'm pretty good. I'm a pretty good coach. I don't have the time. I don't have the money to go through all these learning opportunities that are out there for me to improve my own coaching. I don't need it. But it was a beautiful shift for me to go from that setting. And it wasn't everybody, but certainly there's a time and money investment in order to take some courses and get some training. But it was a beautiful transition when I came to the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, in that these coaches that are at the top level are always willing to learn, because they know that there's such a small fraction of a difference that they need in terms of athlete performance that could be the difference between getting a gold medal or not medaling at all. So it's a wonderful thing to see in terms of the coaches who are willing to learn. I think one of our challenges is helping them understand why these things that aren't directly related to their sport will help them as a coach.
You're talking about some of those soft skills, for example?
Yeah. Like we could name them something and put them on our agenda and they'd be like, what the heck is this? Some of them might be. But when they get there, they're like, oh my gosh, I never even thought of that. So, we had one coach went through the pilot program of this national team coach program that I manage. And he's like, I learned more in 3 days than I did in 20 years of coaching. So it was, that made us pretty happy that we hit the mark on that. So yeah, these guys are so good at what they do and they're at the top of their game. So we're challenged as staff to try to figure out, well, okay, what can we do to help them get even better?
When you look at coaching globally in the US, we've seen it improve, and it's interesting to hear the shift in perception between kind of the national standards of coaches versus the Olympics, where let's get better, let's be driven, let's be motivated. Do you have any advice on how to change that so that the more and more coaches are engaged at the recreational level, the high school level, even the collegiate level, where I've met coaches who've told me they've never been to any training before, and they've been coaching for decades, and I'm, of course, are you serious? You could learn so much. There's so much, but I've been successful. Therefore, why do I need anything else? And what advice would you have, given the fact that you've kind of been in both areas and you've seen both perspectives?
Yeah, it can be a hard nut to crack for sure. The people who are like that maybe have developed this comfort level, and maybe they don't like to be pushed outside of their boundaries, especially if they are getting the results that they're being paid to get. Yeah, we like to think of coaches as continual developers. It's not just a professional development opportunity, it's ongoing learning. And that takes practice. It takes practice in any industry, I think, for sure. But for coaching, when you're seeing the results and you're getting the athlete performances and the athlete buy-in and all those things are going well for you, it's great to say, well, yeah, I can't go to that workshop this weekend. But it's when the times get difficult or you face a situation you might not have faced before, it's like, okay, would that weekend or that online course, whatever it is, would that have helped me through this? So I think for us, it's identifying different opportunities that are of quality for these coaches maybe to consider. And I really do. I mean, it's going to sound cliche, but I think once you stop learning and developing, you've kind of hit your peak, and everybody else can catch up with you. And then all the results you've been seeing might go away. You might see some of your competitors. So again, it is a competitive situation between coaches if you want to continue to grow, but they're different markers for every coach. What I refer to the Iceland model in soccer. If you watched the Men's World Cup a couple years ago, Iceland, the small nation, did really well, but they have these coaches that are fantastically prepared at the lower levels. So the younger kids are getting these developmental skills and a better understanding of the fundamentals and things that are just, by the time they get to their elite program, they're just, head and shoulders above, or they could be. So that's the kind of stuff that we need to look for too. It's not just the Olympic and Paralympic national team coaches or the NCAA Division I coaches. It's the youth level. We need help at the youth, and not just in developing skills, but in keeping kids engaged in sport, which is huge. Michael Phelps and, the Simone Biles and everybody, they don't come out of nowhere. They stay in their sport until they get best. So.
Well, you timed that beautifully, because Bob Bowman, Michael Phelps' coach, is going to be on next week as a guest. So I hope everybody joins us for that. You also mentioned development, and that kind of triggered. I was already planning on asking this question, so we'll go there now. The USOPC has really developed something called the athlete development model.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you are a part of, and can you explain to people what it is and why it's so important in today's environment of club teams and win-loss records as 10-year-olds and things like that?
Yeah, for sure. I wasn't the lead on that by any means. Some of my colleagues, Chris Snyder, was the lead in that. He's worked closely with a number of the national governing bodies. And all due respect to USA Hockey, who are our ADM gods and goddesses, who have did the hard work for years, going up to Ottawa, the Canadian counterparts in hockey, to learn from them, from their long-term athlete development model. But they did a lot of work to, again, Americanize what Canada had done and make it something that would be more palatable, I think, for the U.S. Coaches and parents and everybody. But the American development model basically it's a 5-stage approach to keep kids active, engaged, play multi-sport, give them opportunity, accessibility, and make things fun, and remember, why kids play sport and why they drop out. And you don't need the U6 national championships. That was a big thing that hockey did. They had a culture change when they started implementing their ADM, and there was a lot of pushback, but they knew that doing this with ADM was the right thing to do. And what they've found is that they have multi-sport athletes that continue to come back to play ice hockey because they have a great product. It's fun. The kids learn a lot. They're playing, they're engaged and active a lot more than some of the traditional sports. So there's a lot packaged up in ADM for sure. But we hope that it'll be a game changer, and the other NGBs are finding ways to implement, if not the full package of ADM, then parts of it, because you've got such a range of sports. Team sports might be a little bit easier to implement an ADM, but you think of the early specialization sports like ice hockey or gymnastics. That's going to be a challenge to tell a gymnast, an elite gymnast or an elite figure skater to go out and play, I don't know, baseball or softball. And knocking any of the sports, but they have to develop so early, and there's really fine skills and body compositions and things like that play into those. But they're finding ways to engage with each other in terms of cross-promoting sports that might have talent identifiers that they share, so that then the kids can stay engaged and reduce those overuse injuries and just find stuff that they love to do and stay involved in the game.
Just kind of to summarize what you've learned across your career and your experiences working with coaches at all levels. And obviously, I run a coaching program, and we have coaches of different levels coming through that program. What advice would you give for them, given what what you've seen, what works, what doesn't work? What do they need to know, in your opinion, in order to be successful, not just now, but throughout their career?
Yeah, I think what I've learned, first of all, I've been asked in the past, like, are you comfortable in your position? I'm like, no, I got to keep learning. I got to keep staying on top of things, just the same way that we tell the coaches to. I think we need to look outside of the sporting context sometimes and learn from, say, business leaders. One of the things that I read a lot is the Harvard Business Review, because there's a lot of leadership in, again, the behavioral style information that's there. I'm listening to podcasts a lot now because, the gyms are closed and I walk. I'm getting old, so I'm walking. And so I'm trying to find these new podcasts. I'm listening to the Happiness Lab now. Steve Kerr and Pete Carroll have their Flying Coach podcast, which is fantastic. There's just a lot more opportunity for me now to listen to things. But yeah, we're trying to take situations that we can learn from the military, from different scientists, different just anywhere I'm just trying to be a sponge, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is that I need to be as much of a continual learner as any of these coaches that we're working with on behalf of or for the athletes.
It's great advice. If somebody does have a question for you, maybe wants to follow up, learn a little bit more about ADM or USOPC coaching ed, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, for sure. They're happy to be happy to have them email me at christine.bolger@usoc.org. And like I told you, the P is out of there because I'm one of the old people, but it is usoc.org.
That's BOLGER, by the way, because, hey, we have a podcast too. This gets broken down into a podcast. So I know, Christine, that you'll be listening to FSU Coach on your walks from now on.
That's right.
Well, just wanted to say thank you very much for joining us and sharing a little bit about your experiences and what you're doing at the elite level. And I do hope that people do reach out and ask you questions if they have them.
Happy to. Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity, Tim. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And just a reminder, coming up on Friday, we have another conversation, this time with strength and conditioning in baseball and football. We'll be talking to a strength and conditioning coach, and we'll be learning how he works with different sports and trains them differently. So hope you join us on Friday, not Thursday, which has been our traditional time, but Friday. So we'll provide more information for that. But on behalf of myself and, of course, Christine Bolger, thank you so much for watching.